Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Nessie's Dead. As always, we are your hosts, Spencer and Helen.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome to October.
Yes, it is officially spooky season for the world.
It's always spooky season here on Nessie's Dead.
Yes.
But now it's officially spooky season
everywhere
for the general public. So I'm actually a tiny bit nervous because this case that I have today, it is true crime or an unsolved death or deaths because there are multiple people involved. But the whole time I was like, she better not know this. She better not know this case. So I'm really praying that you don't know it.
Okay, so it's true crime.
Mm-hmm. It took place in the 2000s.
Okay. Do they know what happened?
No, it is completely unsolved, very mysterious. There's a lot of evidence, like so much evidence to go off of. However, none of the evidence goes anywhere. It all leads to dead ends.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Very fascinating. So
all right.
Hopefully I can shock you a little bit tonight.
I'm curious. What do you have?
Okay, so let's go ahead and take that plunge into the mysterious deaths of the Jamison family.
Ooh, okay. It does not ring a bell for me.
Okay, so it might. As I get into it, it might jog your memory a little bit, but hopefully it's completely new for you and for our listeners. But with that, let's go ahead and get into it.
Let's go. Let's take a plunge.
So the Jamison family was a pretty normal family for the most part, but the family consists of 44-year-old Bobby, 40-year-old Sherilyn, and their 6-year-old daughter, Madison. Bobby and Sherilyn started dating in 2002. They had their daughter, Madison, in 2003, and then they were wed by 2004. They settled in Eufaula, Oklahoma. Now, in between having Madison and getting married, the couple were met with their first real rough patch. And this is when Bobby is severely injured in a pretty intense car accident that leads to a really intense back injury. And this causes a lot of long-term chronic pain for him. He becomes reliant on pain meds just to be able to get through the day and to be able to do any normal task. He's not physically very able in terms of being able to do stuff around the house for quite a while. And he was not able to work because of this injury. So he was collecting disability. At the time, Sherilyn was also not working. So they were really barely getting by on this disability. All the while, they have their newborn daughter, Madison, that they're trying to take care of.
That sounds like a very stressful time.
I can't even imagine having a newborn child, let alone doing that.
It takes up a lot of time and money. Yeah.
Now, Sherilyn actually had another child. She had a son from a previous marriage, and she had split custody of her son. I'm not sure of his name. I didn't see his name anywhere in any of my research, but she does have another child.
It may be hidden. Sometimes they don't publish it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And in a lot of the photos I saw that had him in it, his face was blurred out in most of them, which makes sense. Another little side note on Sherilyn, she had actually been diagnosed a little while back with bipolar disorder. She was known to be on and off her meds quite a bit. Friends and family, they said that she was normally very nice, very fun, very easygoing and friendly. However, whenever she was not on her meds, she was hateful, rude, and just not a very nice person at all. At the time of Bobby's back injury and all of the stress that they're dealing with, she was off her meds at this time. The family not only was going through this rough patch that involved Bobby's injury, and now they're having financial issues. She's not working. He's not working. They're just on the little bit of disability that they're getting. Now Sherilyn is struggling with her own mental health. So there's just a lot going on with the family right now.
Yeah, they're hitting a really bad rough patch.
They are, but they really did their best to power through everything. But then, not long after, in 2007, they're hit with another rough patch when Sherilyn's sister tragically dies because her throat closed up after a bee sting.
Oh, that is so tragic. Allergies are always so scary because you really have absolutely no control when they hit. I mean, unless like you have like an EpiPen or
Mm-hmm.
people know exactly what to do, they can just completely take over.
Yeah, it's very scary.
It is.
And this was very, very hard for Sherilyn. She was very close to her sister. And of course, this just brought her to an even lower point mentally.
Oh, I can imagine losing your sister, especially if you said they were very close.
Mm-hmm. But right around the same time that tragedy happened, Bobby's parents, Bob Dean and Starlet, they actually filed for divorce after being married for 40 years. They were married essentially Bobby's entire life. This divorce put a lot of tension into the whole family, not just between Bobby and his parents, but all of their family. And it brought on a lot of conflict throughout. Bob Dean actually threatened to kill Bobby and Sherilyn and their daughter Madison. Yeah, great grandpa. Wow. He actually also attempted to run Bobby over with his car. I'm not sure of the context of what that was about, but he did attempt to kill him at one point. So because of this, Sherilyn and Bobby filed for a protective order against Bob Dean. However, for whatever reason, did not go through and they did not get that protective order. So they did install some security cameras in their front yard and around the house and whatnot, just to kind of give them a little bit of peace of mind.
That's some good thinking. At least they're able to see what's going on around them and also record anything. So if there's any suspicious behavior that the grandpa comes on their property, they're going to have that on record so that maybe if they had enough, they could refile and it would actually be a case they could go with.
Yeah. And also, while filing for that protective order, Bobby did note that his father was a very dangerous person that was involved with prostitution and gangs. So just to kind of paint a little bit of a picture of Bob Dean for you.
Not the best pap.
No.
No.
However, Bobby and his father, Bob Dean, actually owned some kind of business. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but the business ended up going under and they were able to sell the property that they owned that the business was used on or whatever. And when they sold it, it was worth $64,000. And Bob Dean was not going to share that money with his son, Bobby. So Bobby took him to court and won, and he got half of that $64,000, which is $32,000. Look at my math skills.
The drama is thickening, so now he's taking half the money.
Yeah, so now there's more drama in that dynamic. All of this was in 2009, and as if things couldn't get worse for the Jamison family, in July of that year, Sherilyn decided to sue her ex-husband for 40 months worth of child support back pay. So that's a lot. However, she was not successful in this and it all backfired on her, leading to an emergency custody order about their now 10-year-old son. And her 10-year-old son chose to live with his father full time because he said that his mom was, quote, acting odd.
So now she loses her child as well. Oh, that would break my heart. And especially since the child chose, that's got to make you feel all sorts of feels.
He said that Sherilyn was just kind of odd and he was uncomfortable at the house now, which we will get into a little bit more of that.
Okay.
But not only did she lose the custody of her son, she did not get any of that back pay from her ex. And the court actually ordered her to pay for that back pay now to the husband.
How?
I don't know. That was weird. I don't know what that's about because that doesn't make sense to me. But that's what happened.
That makes no sense. I don't understand why she would have to pay for something he was supposed to be paying for.
But in the midst of all this, she actually attempted suicide. She was not able to fully go through with it. She was found and then hospitalized. I don't think she was in the hospital long. She was released pretty quickly. But right after she got back home from the hospital, their daughter, Madison, who is now 6 years old, had some kind of accident at school leading to her losing a few of her teeth. Sherilyn and Bobby flipped out and decided to pull her from school. And they were supposed to be homeschooling her. And they were like, yeah, we're going to homeschool her instead. But they never did.
Oh, so she's just sitting around the house all day?
Yes. Now, I personally found it kind of odd that Madison loses some teeth at school because of some incident on a playground. And they decided to pull her out of school. But I feel like that Sherilyn and Bobby were just kind of at this boiling point, and that was sort of the last straw. And they were like, you know what? Enough is enough. I think they kind of just wanted to withdraw from everybody.
Maybe they just weren't making very rational decisions at the time. All the stress had just overtaken them completely.
Probably, yeah. But all around the same time, there was this kind of handyman guy who was staying at their house and helping out with stuff. Because remember, Bobby has this chronic back pain and he's not able to do a whole lot of physical activity. So they have this handyman guy helping out. I don't exactly know how it came up, but this handyman got into a fight with Sherilyn because Sherilyn said something about how she has some Native American ancestry and the handyman is a white supremacist and he didn't like that. So they got into this huge fight, which led to Sherilyn kicking him out at gunpoint, and I guess he refused to leave. So she shot 2 warning shots into the ground to scare him off, and those warning shots worked, and he left. But I feel like Sherilyn, I mean, she was right to be upset about this white supremacist in her house, but
it escalated very quickly.
Yes, and I feel like she was also just at that point of like, enough is enough.
They all sound like they're losing it a little bit.
Yes.
This is going to get bad, isn't it?
You know, it's right about here. Things start to get strange.
Oh, you're stressing me out.
Get ready. The Jamison family, they're at that point. They're done with everybody. They're done with this town. They're done with all of the drama. And they just kind of want to get away. So Bobby finds a 40-acre property in the Sans Boise Mountains of Oklahoma. What they were going to do was move out to this property and live in a shipping container that they had. And so the shipping container is like on their property at their house right now. And they're going to take it up to the mountains and live out of it, which is very, very strange.
There's not going to be any running water, no toilet, no electricity.
And it's cold. Oklahoma gets cold. And this is October. This is just the beginning of fall. And it gets colder in the mountains than it does in other parts. And they're taking their 6-year-old daughter to do this.
I mean, that kind of thing you would usually... I mean, people live in things like that. But
yeah,
you take it, you get it set up. You start working on it. You start putting in some plumbing, some sort of electricity. You get it ready for the move-in. You don't just go up with a shipping container and say, we're just going to live in this empty shipping container. It makes absolutely no sense.
No sense. It's very kind
irrational.
Of irrational.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, very spur of the moment and very odd. But this area of the Sans Boise Mountains, it was in Lemaire County, and it was very secluded. There were very, very, very few people who lived around in this area. It was just like super off-grid, dirt roads, no telephone wires, just very outskirts of town, you know. Now, on October 8th, a man who lived in that area did see the family go up the mountain in their pickup truck. He noted that they never came down and nobody else drove up at all. He didn't see anybody else. And now this is down some secluded kind of backwoods country road in this little mountain town area. If he saw somebody drive by, he probably would have noticed it, you know?
Yeah. Is this before they moved the shipping container? Or...
Yeah. So they never actually officially get to that point.
Gotcha.
They're just looking at the land.
Okay.
So on October 8th, they do head out there to the mountains to check out this property, and they meet with a realtor. They go up there, they meet with this realtor to discuss stuff regarding the property and to check everything out. This is the last time that they're ever going to be seen alive.
By the realtor?
You know, I was wondering that too. I was like, was the realtor looked into? I'm sure she was, or I'm sure they were. It doesn't seem like it was the realtor. We'll get into some stuff for sure.
Okay.
But that was on October 8th. Also on October 8th, there is footage on those security cameras that they had set up around the house, remember?
Yeah.
There's footage of them loading up the truck with a bunch of different things. And what's really odd to note is they weren't bringing big stacks of boxes and a bunch of bags. They would carry one singular item at a time to the truck. And they did it kind of leisurely, and they did not make any interactions with each other. So Bobby and Sherilyn are going in and out of the house, loading up this truck, not making eye contact, not talking, and every once in a while they would both stop at the same time and just aimlessly stare. And all of this is caught on the security footage.
What in the world?
Uh-huh. And it took forever. It wasn't like, oh, that's like a weird 5 minutes of them loading up a truck.
Yeah.
It took a really lengthy period of time.
Oh, so it wasn't like they were like, we're going to take like these few select items. We don't need to box them. It was like they were getting a lot of different items that you probably could have just boxed up and saved 5 or 6 trips.
Probably, yeah. Or things like instead of carrying 2 bags, they would just carry 1 bag in one hand and then leisurely walk back and then just stop and stare. It was very strange.
I'm wondering if they're on drugs. I'm sure you're going to get there and cover if anything was found, but it just sounds like they're just not in their right state of mind at all at that point.
No, definitely not. And I think a psychiatrist had viewed that footage and was like, oh, this seems like drugs, specifically meth. We will get into this, but there was never any evidence that they were using drugs ever found.
Oh, wow.
So that definitely makes things very odd. But
I'm puzzled. You must continue.
So they load up the truck, they head out to the mountains and meet with the realtor, head up the mountain, drive around a little bit, and that's it. Never seen or heard from again.
Also, where are they going to take this stuff to? I just thought of that. They don't have...
It's all just, they just put it in the truck. I don't know what the plan was. But a week or so goes by and nobody has heard from them. Now, nobody thought that this was odd. I guess the family was kind of reclusive in a sense anyway, and they would go really long periods of time without talking to their friends and family. So the fact that no one saw or heard from them for a week was normal. That was not odd at all. Really, the only reason that a search party ends up commencing for them is because some hunters were in that area and they found the abandoned truck. They noted that they thought it was very odd, especially considering that these mountains are very, very difficult terrain and they're very hard to maneuver through. They thought, okay, maybe someone was hiking and something happened. They called the police and the police come to check it out. And upon discovery, they see a little bit of movement inside of the truck and they're like, what's going on? Who's in the truck? There's a dog. The family dog, Maisie, is left in this truck. Now, the truck was abandoned October 8th. This is like October 14th or 15th. So the dog has been living, barely clinging on to life for the past week in this locked truck. The truck was locked. Keep that in mind.
How did it survive?
They believe that the dog was actually eating its own feces. So the police break the window and rescue the dog. Also inside of the truck were a bunch of clothes, specifically, odd to note, jackets. Remember, it's October, it's the mountains, it's getting cold. People who are going out into the mountains are going to need their jacket at this time of the year. Yeah. They also found a GPS, a cell phone, and a journal full of handwritten angry letters and a brown paper bag with $32,000 cash inside of it.
So they took all the cash with them.
Mm-hmm. They then also find Sherilyn's purse and Bobby's ID, and they're able to identify the truck's owners and able to figure out, okay, this is the Jamison family. So that search party commences, and at first it's very difficult. Like I said, this is very difficult, very tough terrain. All of these search parties are having a really hard time looking for them, but they did use all their efforts. There were people on horseback, they were doing drones, people on foot. There were all sorts of things being used to track down the Jamison family, but it was all met with dead ends.
All that and nothing.
But let's go back to talking about that abandoned truck. First of all, remember, the truck was locked.
Yes.
And inside of it, alongside the dog, who they rescued, they decided to look into the GPS system, and they were able to look at where they had been driving, and it showed that they left their house. It showed that they went to this property where they met with the realtor. It showed them go up the mountain, and then it showed them drive to the area where the truck ended up being left abandoned. And that was it.
So they didn't go any little off-roading or travel back around? It was
No.
They went and stopped, and that was it?
Yes. And then those handwritten journal entries, those were written by Sherilyn, and most of them were very, very angry and very directed at Bobby. One of them actually read, quote, "I would not wish my daughter to be raised in foster care because of you being in prison for attempted murder and her mother dead," quote. So that's a lot right there in that letter.
Yes.
Now, the letter was not dated, and they were not totally aware of the context.
So we don't know if he flipped out that day or if that was a series of him acting odd. Things were getting scary. It was just, it's there.
Yeah. And now maybe this was never documented, but maybe there was an issue where he attacked his father, Bob Dean. And maybe Sherilyn was like, "No, stop. You're going to get us all killed, and you're going to go to jail for trying to kill him. And then Madison's going to end up in foster care." That's kind of how I interpreted that personally.
It could go either way, really.
Yeah. But people who knew her did say that this was her way of letting things out and dealing with her emotions. She would just angrily handwrite letters. Like if she was mad at Bobby, she would just write an angry letter and use it as just a way to let things go. But there were other letters that were kind of happy and that were talking highly of Bobby. One of those nicer ones directed at Bobby actually was dated, and it was dated October 5th, only 3 days before the family went missing. So that's very odd. I kind of can't help but think that it's related to the fact that she was on and off her meds. So maybe she was just a little unstable and kind of just writing almost anything that came to mind.
Could have been. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because she's up and then she's down and then she's up and then she's down. So depending on her state of mood, if she's feeling good about everything, happy note, if she's down, because they did say that she would get rude and nasty off of her meds, maybe.
Yeah.
So maybe that just reflected in her writing.
Yes, probably. That's what I think.
It makes more sense.
Now, something else that was found in the abandoned locked truck was Bobby's cell phone. And the cell phone, this is a very major piece of evidence, and it's very, very strange. So the family goes missing October 8th, 2009. However, there are several outgoing calls made from that cell phone on October 12th of 2009.
So they're still alive.
Yes, but we don't know, because the whole time that truck was just abandoned with the dog inside of it, locked. So who's making those calls?
Maybe, I don't know.
But what's kind of odd is it called you know how you call your own voicemail? Those were the outgoing calls, and it was 3 outgoing calls to his own voicemail. And some people have said, oh, well, maybe it was the dog, like the dog stepped on the phone and it just dialed the voicemail, which that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it can make so much sense, but not the fact that the dog was able to dial it 3 times and it only ever called the voicemail. Like, if the dog was stepping all over the phone, why didn't the dog also accidentally call some random hodgepodge of numbers or send some unreadable text because the dog is just stepping on it with its paw, right?
It's very odd. I guess you'd also have to know what kind of phone and the features, like the buttons on the phone, to really determine if that was an easy option.
Yes, which we don't know.
Yeah.
But what's even stranger is on that cell phone, they find a very unsettling photo of the 6-year-old daughter, Madison. Now, I'm going to send you this photo.
Okay. What is she doing? It looks like she's sitting by some rocks. Her arms are crossed, but she's not smiling. She's not crying. She just has her face kind of looks sad, but she just has a very questionable expression on her face.
Yeah. And she's not looking at the camera.
No.
Some people have described it as looking like if you ask a 6-year-old to smile and they're distracted and don't care and don't want to take the picture and they kind of force a fake smile really quick.
Her smile is faced so pointed down. It looks like she's about to cry. The more you look at it, and especially if you zoom in, she looks terrified. And
yeah,
her hair's disheveled.
Yeah, her hair. That was one thing I noticed. I didn't see people really talking about that, is that her hair to me was very messy. But maybe it was windy and she's 6 years old and she doesn't care.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are a lot of theories around the photo and so many different people say so many different things. But it is very unsettling. And it's very unsettling that that's on the cell phone. And what else is very strange is that rock that she's standing next to in the picture is right by where the truck is abandoned. So that was found on the cell phone in the truck along with those other pieces of evidence. However, there were a few things not found in the truck. One of those was a brown briefcase that Sherilyn is seen loading into the truck on that kind of creepy security footage. That brown briefcase was never found in or around the truck. It was never found in their house. It was never found in the surrounding area. We don't know what's in it. And that was a piece of evidence that the authorities really wanted to find because they felt like because it was missing, assumed that it was of some sort of value to the story.
Yeah, so if it was something that they needed, they would have taken with them. It would have been found somewhere.
Something else that was not found in the truck or in the home or in any of the searches was Sherilyn's pistol. So anyone who knew her stated that she carried her pistol everywhere she went, and the main place that she would keep it when it was not on her person was in that truck, but it was never found.
Oh, well, if she kept it with them, maybe they did venture off and she had it on her person?
Perhaps, but
I'm sure you're going to cover something here, aren't you?
You're jumping the gun.
Okay.
No pun intended.
Okay.
We will get to that shortly. So while the gun was not found in the house or in the truck, they did find something else very strange. Now, this was back at their home. They find some more very strange writing. However, this time it is not journal entries. It is on the walls inside of their house and outside. On the inside of the house, they found "Get Out, Satan" written all over the wall, and outside on rocks, it said "Jesus is coming."
So they got real religious, or?
Well, it gets a little weirder.
Oh, okay.
So remember that storage unit that they were going to take up to the mountains and live in? So that storage unit, like I said, was on their current property by the house. And on the outside of that, they spray painted "Witches don't like their black cat killed." And it also said, "Gossip is sin and only God can judge."
I don't know. It feels like they were on drugs and they went crazy religious conspiracy, like the whole people are out to get us, the devil can get you.
Well, it's about to get a little crazier
Oh
because so people who knew the Jamisons told the police that the couple kept mentioning that their house was full of spirits. Bobby actually obtained a satanic Bible, hoping that he could use it to take care of these evil spirits. He also sought out a local pastor asking for help, and he was asking about bullets that could be used for spiritual warfare.
Okay, so either they are dealing with maybe some kind of demonic possession, or their brains were just going crazy, like thinking up all these situations and causing all this fear, which, oh, maybe when they were fleeing the house like that, they didn't want the spirits to think they were leaving, which is
maybe.
why they were doing things so quietly and peacefully and not talking about it, because they were like, maybe in their heads, they were like, they'll hear us, they'll know, they'll follow us.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I could definitely see their thinking with that.
Yeah.
Not personally, but from knowing the story.
Yeah.
But actually, specifically, they believed there was this, well, Bobby believed there was this evil spirit that lived on their roof and would wake them up in the middle of the night. And I think this was the main one that he wanted those bullets for the spiritual warfare. He wanted to fight off that particular spirit. But it wasn't just Bobby, because Sherilyn also believed that the house was haunted and full of all these spirits, but she was not afraid of them. She said that they were good spirits and that their daughter Madison actually could see them and was friends with one of them.
This could go in so many directions.
I know. But just wait.
Ugh.
People who knew her also said that she was referring to herself as a witch and had started dabbling with witchcraft.
Depending on what kind. Maybe doing it to like cleanse things, become more spiritual, or it could be that she was taking it in the
darker direction.
Yeah, like the darker. It's hard to say where her brain was going.
It's so odd because it's kind of conflicting. You know, she thinks that these spirits are good, and, you know, the daughter is friends with them and she's not afraid of them. And she's like, oh, let's do witchcraft. Whereas the husband is seeking out pastors to help fight off what he believes are evil spirits. And that storage unit had witches don't like when their black cat is killed. I believe that they had a cat that recently died and they thought that someone had poisoned their cat on purpose. That could have happened. It could also speak to the paranoia that is going on.
Yeah, or I was wondering if he had hatred against her for maybe thinking that she had brought this into the home.
Maybe.
And maybe he had wrote that as kind of like a warning.
Because I don't know.
In my mind, if he is scared of what's in the home and he's reaching out to a pastor to come and alleviate it, get it out, he wants to get some bullets for spiritual warfare, maybe he was blaming her, like, you brought this into the home, you're at peace with it, this is not good.
But then he also was using the Satanic Bible
I forgot
to try
about
to
that.
understand the spirits. So that's kind of conflicting as well, I feel.
Yeah.
So, of course, the police are like, what on earth is not only what happened to this family, but what was going on with this family? They are just at a dead end. They have no clue. They have all this evidence. And like I said, it's just going nowhere. It's just leading to more dead ends and more questions. What they decide to do is look into their best possible suspect. They had heard about the incident that happened with the white supremacist handyman, and they were able to track him down. They question him and they look into everything. But he actually is cleared because at the time of the Jamison family's disappearance, he was in jail for a different conflict.
Not his first conflict then.
No, I mean, he has his issues with plenty of other things, especially because he's a white supremacist.
Yeah.
But he was not at fault for the Jamisons' disappearance.
Mm.
So their next best suspect that they look into is Bob Dean, Bobby's father. Well, just a quick refresher, he threatened to kill the whole family and attempted to kill Bobby by running him over with a car, and is known for being dangerous and working with gangs.
Yeah.
However, Bob Dean had fallen extremely ill and was in and out of a hospital and living full-time in a care facility at the time of the family's disappearance. His health was actually so bad that he died like a month and a half to 2 months after the family vanished.
But he still could have hired a gang.
He could have, yes. The police, they never found any connections with anything, and they don't feel he had anything to do with it. And something else that is kind of odd that points to him being innocent is that right before he died, he had changed his will and took everyone out of it and left everything to his granddaughter, Madison. So it is a little odd to think that he wants to leave everything to his granddaughter, Madison, but is also trying to kill her and her parents.
Unless
it was like, strategic.
It could have been that, or if she wasn't supposed to be a part of whatever happened to the parents, and it just happened to, unfortunately, she got...
Yeah, perhaps. Maybe he got sick because he was living with so much stress, and it aided in killing him within 2 months of it.
That could be possible, yeah.
Well, the police did not believe that he had anything to do with it, and the case starts going cold. It's completely stagnant. Everyone's kind of losing hope that they're going to find any answers. But that is until a few years later, on November 16th, 2013, some hunters happened to stumble upon 3 human skeletons laying face down in a row on the ground in a very secluded area of the Sans Boise Mountains.
Just out in the open?
Yeah, just out in the open, on top of the ground, 2 adults and 1 child. Only 2.5 miles away from where that abandoned truck was.
So with the search and stuff, they didn't find... They would have been like bodies and not skeletons. They didn't search within like a 2 mile, or they did cover this and they weren't there. Oh.
They did cover it with the cadaver dogs and everything. And these skeletal remains were positively determined to be the Jamison family. It was completely missed. But those dogs, they did not track the scent to these bodies, but they were able to track the scent to other places. So it's really strange that the dogs could not track these bodies, but they could track other areas that the Jamison family had been in. And it's odd that the search parties had gone through it and missed it completely.
It's not something you would really miss. 3 bodies just laying there.
When you're looking for 3 missing people.
It sounds like they were brought back later, maybe after searches were off.
That's what I believe. I think that's what most people believe.
So then it's the thought of where were they the whole time?
Yeah. Now, there was no evidence found to suggest how they died. There were some things found near them, like a jacket and some articles of clothing, like a shoe or 2, but no gun. Sherilyn's gun was never found. Still to this day, never found.
Now, do you know if like the clothing was still on them? If they, and this sounds graphic of me to ask, but usually if you're out in those conditions, animals will dismember and pull the body apart, and there will be missing pieces, and it's kind of more scattered. Correct. Or were they literal, just like full skeletons right there?
No, it was more of the remains. There were pieces missing.
Okay.
I'm not sure what all pieces. There were some pieces that they believed were eaten by animals. There was a hole found in the skull of Bobby, and a lot of people are like, oh, that would be a bullet hole. Now, the police do not believe it to be a bullet hole. They think it was from some kind of decomposition situation or something from some kind of animal. But the fact that the gun was never found is very strange. And the fact that there are no bullet holes found in the skeletal remains of Sherilyn or Madison.
Yeah.
And of course, they could have hit just tissue. But statistically, that's very odd. Like, why and how, you know?
If it was a bullet hole in his skull and it didn't come out the front or wasn't found lodged within the skeleton, I think they would be able to see the diameter and that it was a bullet hole from a distance, that it wasn't able to come out.
Well, I think that's probably how they determined it was not a bullet hole. Now, a lot of people try to argue that. I can't help but believe that the police were correct, that it's not a bullet hole. I just feel that way about it.
Yeah.
Like, one of the main theories is murder-suicide, Sherilyn's doing, but I don't know. If she did it, where is that gun? And a lot of people are like, oh, well, rain could have washed the gun away. Yeah, but why would the rain wash away a gun but not a shoe or a jacket?
Mm-hmm. A gun is heavy.
Much
Or,
heavier than a shoe or a jacket.
yeah.
And that briefcase, remember?
Mm.
What was in that briefcase? Why was that not found anywhere? And if someone took it, why would they take that and not the $32,000 cash?
Well, maybe they were doing like some kind of drug deal or something. And
The briefcase had the drugs?
yeah, and she went out there with the gun and the briefcase. It went wrong. Maybe the perpetrator, took the gun and the briefcase.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know the cash was back at the truck. They didn't even think to go back to the truck. They didn't want to be involved with that, leave evidence of their fingerprints, things like that at the truck.
That's what a lot of people say. And that is a major theory, that they were up there checking out the property, checking out the area, and they stumbled on something they maybe shouldn't have stumbled on. I guess this area is known for drawing in people who are looking to get off the grid. So there are kind of some shady characters up in these mountains, but...
Could have shot him in like the gut or something.
Yeah, perhaps. Some people also believe that it was a hunter who accidentally shot them and tried to cover it up. But then I'm like, why would he shoot all three of them then?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Unless he just wanted to murder them. But I guess with that, we'll get into some more detailed theories. A really big theory with this case is, of course, drugs. Specifically meth. Meth is a very common drug in that area that they were living in and in this area of the mountains. That was the first thing police looked into, but they never found anything. They never found anything in the house, anything in the truck. The only thing was that Sherilyn was on her bipolar meds and Bobby was on pain relievers.
Unless they took it all with them in that briefcase.
Correct, yes. But something also to note is that Sherilyn's mother was staying with them right before they had disappeared. She said that if they were doing drugs, she would have seen it or known about it. Everyone that knew them said that they seemed completely normal outside of the stuff they were struggling with and being kind of paranoid, specifically about evil spirits in their home. For their friends and family, they said it doesn't make sense for the drugs just because they didn't act any differently.
It doesn't line up with their character.
Right.
Okay.
And of course, we don't know. But again, I feel like if it was a drug deal gone wrong, that cash would have been taken for sure.
See, I'm in the opposite end of you because I feel like they would have had nothing to do with the truck and just not known it was in there. Maybe the cash was brought for backup in case they needed it.
Could have been a secret thing. Well, the next theory is that those evil spirits in the house were real. They were experiencing a real haunting, and that haunting is what pushed them to move out, head out to the woods, and kill themselves.
Bold statement for a haunting.
It is.
But like I said before, the behavior with them moving the items out of the home in the way they did, that makes sense. It seemed
was very possessed, like.
Yeah. And it was also very like hush-hush. Maybe they were paranoid that they didn't want to make themselves known to the spirits that anything was out of the ordinary. Maybe they were like, they'll see us, they'll know, nobody talk, like, let's just make this look very nonchalant.
I feel like they were paranoid about something either way. I feel like that's part of why they took Madison out of school when there was that little incident with her teeth falling out. They could have been like, oh my God, this is the beginning of us getting targeted. Oh, this was a warning. And maybe just really over-exaggerated that. Maybe there was a very real threat for them, so they were just so on edge. Or if it wasn't the spirits that they were trying to not be obvious around when it comes to moving the stuff into the truck, maybe they were nervous that the person who was out to get them was watching them, and so that's why they did it so nonchalantly.
Both make sense.
Well, there's one more major theory. I guess the other major theory is that it was the murder-suicide. But this other theory is the cult theory. Now, this kind of touches into several different things and can go a few different directions. One of it being the fact that there was all the occult stuff going on at their house with witchcraft and the Satanic Bible. And Sherilyn's mother actually believes that they got involved in some kind of strange mystical cult. And that was part of why they were going to move out and live in a storage container in the middle of nowhere. Or it can kind of hint at the fact that they were at such a rough point in their lives. And typically how cults operate is they'll lure you in when you're at your weakest moment.
That's
and
true.
They could have maybe been on some hit list. Like maybe they were a part of a cult and they were trying to get out of it, or they had joined it and something had gone wrong. Like maybe they saw something within the cult they weren't supposed to, or upon joining it, they realized it's not for them. For whatever reason, a lot of people believe that they did end up on the hit list of a cult that operated in this area.
Now, did the mother notice that there were people that they hung around with that she wasn't familiar with, or could have been something that maybe they perhaps found online? Was there any evidence, what I'm trying to say there, on their computers?
Oh, no.
Okay.
But a call does come in. So Sherilyn's best friend actually receives a phone call from an unknown woman who claimed to be part of a white supremacist group, which is very much so like a cult. And it operated out of this area. And she said that they had a hit list and it was full of names, and they would, I guess, go over the hit list. This woman noticed Sherilyn's name and remembered that she saw that there was a Sherilyn who had recently gone missing in that area, and connected the dots and realized that this group, this white supremacist group, had gone after Sherilyn and her family for whatever reason. She wanted to let Sherilyn's friend know that she believes this is what occurred.
It could have been from that guy.
Exactly. Maybe he wasn't personally the one to do it because he was in jail, but he could have gotten in touch with his white supremacist friends and been like, hey, Sherilyn threatened me and she shot 2 warning shots at me. Take care of her.
Yeah, that would make sense because he has an alibi as well.
And maybe he had threatened them and none of it was documented, and that's why they were kind of paranoid. That's why they wanted to get away. That's why they wanted to live in a secluded area where no one would know where they are. And maybe he had his white supremacist group stalking them out, or maybe this cult, this other kind of cult that they were potentially involved with, was after them.
To me, it makes more sense that the white supremacy group would have been after them. They threatened somebody, whether he's in the cult or not. He's probably friends with like-minded people who might be involved in deeper things, and he would have maybe told the story, been very angry during this time, and they said, don't worry about it, we got you. And he's in jail at the time, which would have been the perfect time for them to do the hit, because, you know, he would probably have been concerned, like, no, y'all can't do this, they're gonna blame me, we had the altercation and he's in jail, perfect timing, can't blame him. To me, that makes a lot of sense.
I can't help but side with that. I feel like, of course, it's the kind of craziest. Well, I mean, obviously the fact that the potential spirits in the house pushed them to leave and kill themselves, that's the craziest theory. But in terms of like the more realistic theories, this cult white supremacist group theory is kind of wild, but it makes the most sense. To me, it tracks. It seems like it would be the easiest group to get away with it that could have been after them. Every theory kind of makes sense to an extent. And then there's always something like a clink in the chain or whatever that saying is, that keeps it from being the main theory that works.
To me, it's more logical that they pissed off the wrong guy.
Yeah. I feel like with all of the heavy, stressful, negative energy that they had been dealing with, specifically in 2009, that would very easily help for some kind of haunting to manifest in their space.
Yeah.
But again, probably had nothing to do with the disappearance or the death. Just was alongside it all happening. Well, I guess we will never know.
So many things.
I know this case is wild. There is a lot to it.
And it's cold, still open to this day, right?
Yeah. I don't think it's active.
I think the only way they'd be able to find anything is if that briefcase and that gun ever resurfaced.
Correct.
Then they could, depending on who it resurfaced with, where it resurfaced at, if there was any DNA or anything that's found on it that could lead them to somebody that was there when the family unfortunately died.
You really have never heard of this case.
I haven't heard of this one.
Wow. It really makes you think.
It does.
When I first heard it, I was just like, oh my God.
It's definitely one of those, it's like Lacey Fletcher, to where you're going to be thinking about it the next day and something else is going to pop into your head and you're going to be like, oh, well, what if?
Oh, yeah.
No, it couldn't be. Maybe. It's one of those that it's the shower thought for sure that you're going to be thinking when you're getting ready and you're just kind of mind is wandering, that something else is going to pop into your head about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Well, that's all I've got on the Jamison family.
well, you did an amazing job and you definitely took me on a journey.
Thank you. I'm glad I was able to deliver. I was so sure you knew this one, and I was like, she probably knows more than I do.
No, this is a good one though. I guess with that, we'll say good night.
And pleasant nightmares.
Bye.